Hey everyone, I'm Alessio, and in this video I'm going to show you how to create a Telegram bot using Python and the Teleton library, and then host it in a Docker container. As you can see on the screen, we have the Docker desktop application. If you don't have it installed on your computer, you can follow the download link provided in the description to get it. Inside the image section on the left, we have one called Docker bot that is already in use inside a Docker container called Docker Telegram bot. This container is currently running, which means that our bot is up and running inside the container. With Docker, we can easily package up our bot and run it in a containerized environment. This makes it easy to deploy our bot to different servers and platforms without worrying about dependencies or configuration. Now that our Telegram bot is up and running inside a Docker container, we can test it out and see the simple actions it can perform. To do this, we will use the Telegram application to send commands to our bot. Let's start by sending the /start command. As you can see, the bot responds with a predefined message. This demonstrates that our bot is working as expected and is able to receive and respond to commands inside a Docker container. We can also send the /time command to our bot to see what time it is. Of course, you can write any command you want and customize the behavior of your bot according to your needs. If you want to follow along with the code that we will be writing in this video, you can find it all in the GitHub repository. Just check the link provided in the description to access the code. In the repository, you will find all the necessary files and instructions for setting up and running the bot. You can use this code as a starting point for your own project, or use it as a reference if you get stuck. I encourage you to play around with the code and see what you can come up with. If you have any questions or need further assistance, feel free to reach out to me. In this section of the video, we are going to start writing the main code for our Telegram bot. Now, create a folder on your desktop and then create a file inside this folder called, for example, script.py, and then open this specific folder with your favorite editor. In my case, it's Visual Studio Code. To begin with, we will import all the necessary libraries, which are Teleton, config parser, and datetime. These libraries will allow us to connect to the Telegram API, read configuration data, and work with dates and time. We will then read all the configuration data that we need to connect to the Telegram API, including the API ID, the API hash, and the bot token, as you can see here. These values can be found inside the config.ini file, which you should create inside your folder, and then you should fill it with your own information. The API ID and the API hash can be found inside this specific link, and then the bot token, you can find this specific value by writing to a user called botfather inside Telegram. It's very important to make sure that you have the correct values in the config.ini file, as this will ensure that your bot can connect to the Telegram API and function properly. In this part of the code, we will be setting up the client for our Telegram bot and writing some simple command that the bot can respond to. To start, we initialize the client using our configuration data and specifying the session folder and the session name. In this case, the session data will be stored in a file called session master that will be stored inside a folder called sessions that you should create inside the main folder of your project, as you can see here on the left. Next, we write two simple commands. The /start command, which is this one, which will cause the bot to respond with a message saying Docker bot ready, hello, I'm answering you from Docker, and the /time command, which will cause the bot to give us information about the current time. Finally, we call inside our main function the method run until disconnect on our client to keep the bot running. This will allow us to send commands to the bot and receive responses until we decide to stop the bot. In order to run our Telegram bot inside a Docker container, we will need to create a requirement.txt file that lists all the necessary libraries. This file will allow us to install all the dependencies that our bot needs to run when we build the Docker image. There are a few ways to create this file. One option is to use a virtual environment and run the pip freeze command, which will generate a list of all the installed libraries and save it to a requirement.txt file. Alternatively, you can create the requirement.txt file manually by following the example that is shown in the video. Just make sure to include all the libraries that your bot needs to run. You can also find the requirement.txt file in the GitHub repository for this project. Just download it from there if you prefer. Once you have the requirement.txt file in the project folder, you can proceed to the next step of the tutorial. Now that we have all the code for our Telegram bot and the requirement.txt file that lists all the necessary libraries, it's time to move on to the Docker part of the tutorial. To create a Docker image for our bot, we need to write a Dockerfile. This file, which is this one, will contain all the instructions for building the Docker image, including which base image to use, which files to copy, and how to run the bot. To create the Docker file, you will need to create, of course, a file called Dockerfile in the same folder as your code. Then you can copy the following content, which is this one, into the specific file. And now I will explain every line of this file. Alright, let's break down each line of the Docker file to understand what it does. The first line specifies the base image that we will be using for our Docker image. In this case, we are using a Python image with a specific version and tag. The copy dot line copies all the file in the current directory, which is the dot character, into the Docker image. This includes the code for our bot, the requirements.txt file, and any other files that we need. The third line installs all the libraries listed in the requirement.txt file using pip. This ensures that all the dependencies for our bot are installed inside the Docker image. The last line, the fourth one, specifies the command that will be run when the Docker container is started. In this case, we are using the script.py file, which contains the code for our bot. With this Docker file, we can build a Docker image for our Telegram bot that contains all the necessary files and libraries to actually run the bot. The next file we will need to create is called dockercompose.yaml. This file is used to define and run multi-container Docker applications. It allows you to specify the different services that make up your application and how they are related to each other. You can see here an example of a Docker Compose YAML file that you can use to run a Telegram bot in a Docker container. Now let's break down each line of the file to understand what it does. Version 3 specifies the version of the dockercompose.yaml file. It is important to specify the correct version to ensure that the file is interpreted correctly by Docker. Services specifies the start of the list of the services that make up the applications. Telbot, this is the name of the service that we are defining. You can choose any name that you like for your service, of course. Image dockerbot latest specifies the Docker image that will be used for this specific service. In this case, we are using the Dockerbot image with the latest tag. With this Docker compose.yaml file, we can use Docker compose to build and run our Telegram bot inside a container. Alright, in this part of the video, we are going to create a Docker image for our Telegram bot and host it inside a container. To create a Docker image, we will use the docker build command. This command takes a tag option, which allows us to specify a name for the image. In this case, we are using the name Dockerbot. As you can see here, the dot character at the end of the command specifies the current directory, which is where the Dockerfile and the other necessary files are located. So just open a terminal inside your main folder of your project and write docker build --tag dockerbot space dot. When we run this command, Docker will look for a Docker file in the current directory and use the instructions in the file to build an image. It will then give the image the name that you specified with the tag option, which of course in this case is Dockerbot. Right, as you can see, he just installed some libraries, and then we are ready to proceed to the next step. Next command is the docker compose app. This command is used to start and run a multi-container Docker application defined in a docker compose.yaml file. When you run this command, Docker Compose will look for the docker compose.yaml file in the current directory and use the instructions in the file to build and start the containers from the defined services. In the case of our Telegram bot, the docker compose app command will build a Docker image for the bot based on the instructions in the Docker file, and then start a container based on the image. This will cause the bot to start running inside the container, and you will be able to interact with it using the Telegram application, which is what we will do now. Now, if you go inside your Docker desktop application, you should have an image called Dockerbot and a container called Docker Telegram bot that is actually running in the status, running. Now, as you can see inside our Telegram application, now our bot is responding to the /start and /time command that we wrote at the beginning of the video. So this shows that our bot is running correctly inside the Docker container and is able to communicate with the Telegram API. I hope you found this tutorial helpful. If you have any questions or need further assistance, don't hesitate to ask. And if you enjoyed the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. Your support is, of course, greatly appreciated. Thanks for watching. Bye.